Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Obeisances unto Krishna, who is Vasudeva. We saw Vasudeva means the Supreme Being who is everywhere. The word Namo also is very important. We normally translate it as obeisances, and therefore it goes into Namaskar or Namaste. But literally, the word Namo means Namo, which means not me. So it is not offering any external obeisances, but inwardly recognizing that there is no me here. So simply this mantra alone has the whole import of the truth of the one reality, the one supreme being. It literally translates to Om, not me, only Vasudeva is. So, with this, we'll continue our study of Srimad Bhagavatam. We saw the first three introductory verses of Bhagavatam yesterday. The first and the last introductory verse are especially very beautiful and very powerful as well, because the first verse, as we saw, invokes the entire teaching and also the Gayatri mantra with the expression Satyam Param Dhimahi. And the last verse, the last introductory verse, acknowledges the teacher of Bhagavatam, who is Shuka Brahmarishi, and therefore to offer our respects to him every day is very essential. So we will chant the first and the last introductory verse with their meaning quickly every day before going into the study of Bhagavatam. So the first verse, Janmadyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhignaswarat tene brahma hridaya adikavaye muhyanti yat surayah tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha dhamna swena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. We meditate upon the transcendent absolute being from whom springs forth this entire universe. He is present in all that exists and yet distinct from everything. He is fully conscious and totally independent. He revealed the first seer Brahma, the entire import of Vedic wisdom. The material creation made of the three gunas appear as though real in him, just as water in a mirage appears due to the fiery rays of the sun. Being eternally self effulgent, he is ever free of the illusion, the Maya of this world. We meditate upon this absolute truth, Satyam Param Dhimahi. The last introductory verse, Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam, Shukamukad Amrita Drava Sanyutam, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam, Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. O devotees who relish a taste for divine love, Bhagavatam is the fully ripened fruit of the wish yielding tree of Vedic wisdom, flowing from the great sage Shuka Brahmarishi. It is full of the immortal nectar of supreme bliss and perfect in every way. Go on drinking this nectar again and again every day. This is what we are doing. This verse addresses us as devotees with a taste for divine love and addresses the sweet nature of Bhagavatam that can be drunk every day, coming from the lips of the great sage Shuka Brahmarishi. So, with this invocation, we'll continue with Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam begins with a dialogue in the holy place of Naimisaranya. Aranya means forest. So Naimisaranya is a forest that is even there in the present day Bharat, close to Lucknow on the banks of the river Gomati. And this is considered a holy spot across millennia, and even today it is a beautiful place to visit. And this place has been sung by great poets and sages through the ages. So, in this great place called Naimisharanya, once there was a great yajna, fire sacrifice being organized by a lot of rishis, sages, headed by Shaunaka. And Shaunaka and all the rishis were conducting this great fire sacrifice for a long time every day. And the timing is approximately a few years, maybe 100 years after Krishna has left the earthly abode, and it is considered to be the end of Dwapara Yuga and the beginning of Kali Yuga. So there are four yugas given in the Vedic scriptures. They are Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. These are interestingly in descending order, so we can number them as actually 4, 3, 2, 1. Fourth being the highest, Satya Yuga. Third is Treta Yuga, that's why the word Treta coming from 3. 2 is Dwapara Yuga, coming again from the word for 2, thou or though. And the present is Kali Yuga, the uh, lowest in the numbering order, as it were. So it is a descending order from Satya Yuga to Treta Yuga to Dwapara Yuga to Kali Yuga, and then again it ascends back to Satya Yuga. So this is a cycle of time, and this cyclical nature of time has also been confirmed by modern physics now. And this was known to the Vedic rishis, and they have given a detailed description of this cyclic nature. It was always called Kala Chakra, cycle of time. So time is not linear as normally portrayed in modern science, but the latest research in physics again shows that it is conforming with the Vedic vision that time is circular, it's cyclical. So, this particular time we are in Bhagavatam is at that cusp between Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga, where Dwapara Yuga is ending and Kali Yuga is beginning. And normally it is considered that with each descending yuga, the intellect and the capacities are lesser and the intellect is more interested in gross objects and lacks the ability to have subtle perceptions. So this is the situation when Kali Yuga was beginning, and now we are deep in Kali Yuga, and we can see this as well, where there is so much abundance of various luxuries and various technological advancements, and yet there is so much conflict. In fact, Kali Yuga literally stands for the age of conflict, and so therefore we see a lot of conflict in this age. Even in present day, we can see so many wars and conflicts, and it's been going on with increasing ferocity and more sophisticated weaponry. So, this was the beginning of Kali Yuga when this conversation takes place. And Bhagavatam is organized as multiple dialogues. The main dialogue is between the primary teacher, Shuka Brahma Rishi, as we already saw, who teaches Raja Parikshit, who is a grandson of the Pandavas, of Arjuna in particular. And this conversation is the essence of Bhagavatam between Shuka Brahmarshi and Parikshit. This conversation was in turn heard by a great rishi called Suta Maharshi, and He is now present in Naimisaranya, and in turn, he is going to relay this entire conversation, and that's how the dialogue begins. So, the great uh, congregation in Naimisharanyam, where this great Havan or Yajna is taking place, presumably every day, they are doing the Yajna during the day, and in the evening, they are having uh, discussions and dialogues. And it begins with this query by the rishis headed by Shaunaka. One morning, it says, after finishing the oblations into the sacred fire, the sages paid their respects to Suta Maharshi, and having taken having offered him the seat and taken their seat, they ask him with great reverence. They say, "O sinless Suta, you have studied and expounded all the Puranas, Itihasas, and Dharma Shastras." So there is these various classifications of scriptures. Puranas are 18 in number, and as we saw, Bhagavatam is the cream of all these Puranas. There are 17 other Puranas, and Suta Maharshi has studied all 18, including Bhagavatam, because he has listened to Bhagavatam from directly the mouth of Shuka Brahmarishi. He has also studied Itihasas, which are two in number, Ramayana and Mahabharata, and there are Dharma Shastras, which are the various codes of laws. So they say to Suta Maharshi, "Hey, sinless Suta, you have studied all of these, and whatever is known by the divine sage Vyasa, who is the foremost among all Vedic seers, because Vyasa is known to have organized the four Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva, and also he wrote the Brahma Sutras, which is the commentary on the Upanishads, which are part of the Vedas. And then he also wrote the Puranas. Therefore, he is the foremost among all Vedic seers. And so these rishis say to Suta Maharishi that you know all that Vyasa has compiled, and you have realized both the qualified and the absolute aspect of Godhead. So we saw that there is the impersonal aspect of Godhead, what is called as Nirguna Brahman, the presence, the pure consciousness of being itself, and the personal aspect of Godhead, which is called Sagun Brahman, which is the various pastimes that uh, through incarnations, through avatars, God displays in the realm of names and forms. So the rishis say that, "Hey Suta, you know both aspects, and you know everything that there is to be known because you have a very pure heart." And they also add, "the teachers only confide the most profound secrets to their beloved pupil, and you are one such. So please tell us, what have you determined through a study of all these sacred books as the most easy and direct way for the supreme realization of peace, for the supreme good of all humans?" So, this is the query. Right away, we can see the quality of the query. As we saw in the introduction, one of the primary qualifications of listening to Bhagavatam or listening to any scripture is an attitude of being humble, sincere, and curious. And they display all of this with this query, these rishis headed by Shaunaka. They offer great respect to Suta Maharishi. They are eager and curious to hear from him directly the essence of what is the greatest teaching, and they acknowledge that he is the right person to ask in that congregation because he is the most qualified, having heard directly from Vyasa's son Shuka Brahma Rishi, and who is also a master of all Vedic scriptures. So, this attitude of listening is taught in the very beginning by the rishis of how to listen humbly to Bhagavatam. So, just as they approach Suta Maharshi, we approach Bhagavatam with this attitude of humility and curiosity, and we are eager to know what Bhagavatam has to offer. And this is what they are continuing with. They are saying that, O great sage, in this age of Kali, people are slothful, dull, and tormented with various conflicts and diseases. As we already saw, this age of conflict or Kali is known to have very gross aspects of mind and intellect being magnified, which we can see. And that's what they were seeing as the very beginning, at the cusp of the beginning of Kali Yuga. That Kali Yuga is beginning, humans are degrading in terms of their interests and in terms of their the way they are figuring their purpose of living. They are more interested in sensory gratification and not in the higher purpose of realizing their true self. So, for our good, knowing that this is how Kali Yuga is going to progress, the rishis ask out of great compassion, what is the way for humans to realize the true self in this age of conflict that is coming upon us? And they also add that scriptures are numerous. They teach so many disciplines, practices, rituals. And besides being voluminous, they also have to be listened to part by part. So basically, they are saying that the truth is Vedas are like an ocean. There are so many aspects of Vedas. And if we go to the source of the Vedas, it can be bewildering because there are so many rituals. Some of the rituals are about attaining heaven, some of the rituals are about attaining various powers in this life, about getting wealth and getting various other opulences. And then there are so many other practices, and then there are so many yogic disciplines, and then there are so many philosophies, what is called as darshanas. So to read through all of this can only be bewildering the intellect, and it cannot touch the heart, especially so now because we have access to so many teachings without being able to approach it with the right attitude. And therefore, it's very easy to learn something through just reading a translation and getting confused by it instead of approaching it in the right way. So, this is what the sages are describing, that the scriptures are so voluminous, they teach so many disciplines, they seem to be contradictory even, and so it can all be very confusing. Therefore, they continue, benevolent as you are, draw out by your critical insight the quintessence of the scriptures and declare it to us, because we are full of shraddha, we are full of faith and sincerity, and we want our mind to become pure and tranquil. So, again, the query they are placing is so cultured. The way they are, the conversation is, it is so cultured. They are asking this great rishi, Suta Maharshi, first acknowledging that the scriptures are so numerous, and therefore they are saying, please draw out for us the quintessence. This is what we want, and that is what Bhagavatam is. Then they also add, Hey Suta Maharshi, you also know the purpose for which the Divine Lord, the protector of his devotees, Vasudeva, was born of Devaki and Vasudeva. So they jump directly as true devotees to also ask specifically about Krishna. Because as we saw, it is just a few years after Krishna has departed the earthly abode, and naturally, all the rishis are curious to hear from Suta Maharshi about Krishna. They have already asked him what is the quintessence of all the scriptures and what is the essence that is for the supreme good of humans. And they also know that Krishna walked and taught that quintessence every moment, and therefore to know the pastimes of Krishna is non different from knowing the highest teaching. And in fact, it is even better because teaching can be abstract, but to learn it through the pastimes of Krishna is so much sweeter and so much more relishable. So, knowing this, as true devotees, they right away ask, just in case Suta Maharishi, of course, he is going to narrate the entire dialogue between Shuka Brahma Rishi and Parikshit, which involves all the pastimes of all the avatars leading up to Krishna. But anyway, Shaunaka and the rishis make sure he hears that we want to not only get the highest teaching in an abstract form, but through the life and the pastimes of our dear Lord Krishna. So the verse there is so beautiful. It says, Suta janasi bhadram te Bhagavan satvatam patihi devakyam vasudevasya jato yasya chikirshaya. So as it says, Suta, you know for what purpose the Lord appeared as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. So please explain to us who are keen to hear about the Lord's descent on this earth, which is only for the protection and prosperity of all living beings. And then they also glorify the greatness of not only the Lord's descent, but also his name, which is non different. So they say that his not only his story, his pastime, that is, but also his very name is enough to speedily deliver one from the cycle of birth and death, because fear itself is afraid of the Lord. It says in Sanskrit, Yad Bibheti Swayam Bhayam, beautifully. Fear itself is afraid of the Lord, because fear is only of the ego, the separate self one imagines oneself to be. And when there is separation, there is always fear. When one realizes that Vasudeva alone is, God alone is, then there is no room for fear. So fear itself runs away in the presence of the Lord, literally, like like darkness goes away in the presence of light. So the rishis continue, Hey Suta, sages who have taken shelter in his feet always abide in perfect calm, and they purify anyone who come in contact with them. They now glorify the sages, including Suta Maharshi himself, after having glorified uh, the pastimes of the Lord and his name. Now, the Guru, which is the sage who teaches, is equally glorified. And they say that a sage who has realized the Supreme Being is non different, and therefore he always abides in perfect calm. And they also add that even the waters of Ganga purifies only through long use, whereas contact with the sage purifies instantly. This is the greatness of a true guru, a great sage, who can be a mirror and reveal our true nature. And this is what they are asking Suta Maharishi to be. And so they are saying rhetorically, why would anyone who is truly desirous of purifying themselves, not want to listen to the great exploits of our dear Lord. So they are wanting to hear the highest good of humans, and as shown through the pastimes of Krishna and his names, and they are asking this to Suta Maharshi, saying, we are asking it not only for us, but we are asking for all of posterity, such as we are listening now, and it will be listened as long as there is oceans and mountains. There will be the story of Bhagavatam being narrated. And so, for all of posterity, they are saying anyone who is interested in living a peaceful life, in purifying themselves, in living with tranquility, and most importantly, in love, will be interested in this narration. So please narrate to us, and narrate to us all the noble doings of the Lord who assumes various forms playfully. And then they conclude, this is the first chapter, and we are concluding it by saying, O wise Suta, please recount all the stories of the Almighty Being who enacts at will through his own Maya. So, as we saw in the very first verse, just as water in mirage appears even though it is not actually there, similarly, through the Maya, this great power in the Supreme Being, all names and forms appear, and he himself comes and descends to do various pastimes through his own Maya. So please explain to us all his pastimes that are enacted Leela through his own Maya. We are never satisfied hearing the exploits of, of the illustrious Supreme Being, which are delightful to hear at every step to listeners who have a taste for sweet things. So, as we say um, in the invocation, in the introduction, rasam nigama kalpatoror galitam phalam shukamukad amruta drava sanyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam. Rasam is taste. So this taste of sweetness that is there by simply listening to the pastimes of the Supreme Being, they are saying anyone who has such taste will never be satisfied listening to these stories, listening to these pastimes, listening to these exploits. Krishna, who disguised himself in a human form, performed along with his elder brother Balaram feats that were unimaginable. Having come to know that the age of Kali has arrived, we are assembled in this holy place, which is suitable for a great sacrifice for Sri Hari. This age of Kali takes away the purity of men's heart, and therefore it's difficult to conquer. The only way is to listen to the pastimes of the Supreme Being, and through that purify our heart, and through that realize our true nature. So they are concluding their query to Suta Maharshi by saying, since Krishna, the master of yoga and protector of virtue, has left this earth, please tell us how can we seek righteousness now? So this is how they end their query to Suta Maharshi. And that's the end of the first chapter, known as the dialogue in Naimisaranya. And as we can see, through the very query, the way they are approaching Suta Maharshi, the way they present the questions, the reverence and the curiosity and the love with which they are extracting the sweet stories from Suta Maharshi, This sets the platform for Suta Maharshi to now narrate what he heard from Shukabrahma Rishi, which will begin with chapter 2. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.